light and follow Jesus in the way. Thank you. You may be seated. Well, this is not an unusual story. Jesus has healed people that had lost their sight before this, and he had done other various miracles. And we know on down the line, Lazarus will be resurrected from the dead. But like with Lazarus, this guy had something in common with him. It's one of the very few times that you will find the name of the person that Jesus heals. Usually it's not really mentioned. Scholars have argued as to why, and I'm not getting into that. But I just thought it was neat that his name was Blind Bartimaeus. That tells me he was blind for a while, probably since birth. And his blindness defined him. Blind Bartimaeus. That's what he was known for. So first of all, we see this man, and he has a great disability. He cannot see. His father, Timaeus, that name meant the son of unclean. So not only is he blind Bartimaeus, but his daddy's name means that, and he's the son of this man's name, that he's the son of unclean. Well, he just didn't have anything going for him. But what a picture this is of a person who's lost spiritually. You're surrounded by the beauty of the Lord and all that's around him. And this guy's born unclean and spiritually blind to the truth of God. It's exactly how a lost person is. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to be blind? I discovered right after I graduated high school, I had let my driver's license lapse, and I didn't get them renewed in the mail, and so I had to go up to the TxDOT place, and they make you put your head in that thing and do the eye test. And when she covered my left eye, I could not make out the letters to pass the test with my right eye. She covered my right eye with my left eye, 20/20 vision. When she opened both of them, 20/20 vision. It was just with my right eye that I couldn't see enough to read, to pass, to say that I could pass my driving test. The rest of the day, I was walking around with my left eye shut. I couldn't read the little street signs. I had no idea I had anything wrong with my right eye. Then I started getting worried, man, what if I get poked in my left eye? I'm going to be able to see anything. I mean, I could see, but not to read or not to function. It was years later, I was working, when I first started working for AT&T, one of the things that they stress is safety for us. They preach safety. Every Monday we had safety tips, and you just get sick of it. And one of the things that they would tell us is when you're in a situation where you use the tie wraps, and usually you use a little bitty piece of it, so you got this long piece of plastic hanging around, and they're pointed on the end, they'd say, snip them off. Because even if you had safety glasses on, if you didn't have the sidebars, it'd come in and it would slice your eye. And that was before I wore reading glasses or glasses like this. And I'm in a manhole. Well, I would never wear my safety glasses. That was stupid. And I didn't I cut them all off but one, and it was just hanging right there. And when I turned around, my left eye got sliced right in the middle. And for several days, it just water. Like it was just a problem. I couldn't see out of my right eye to drive. I'm like that. So I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, but I've thought about, oh my goodness, what happens if I do lose my left eye? It's an experience to be blind. Can you just imagine it for a moment? The famous author, Helen Keller, once wrote a magazine article entitled 3 Days to See. In this article, she outlined what she would like to see if she was granted just 3 days of sight. And it was a powerful and thought-provoking article, and this is a little snippet of it. The first day, she said she wanted to see her friends. The second day, she said she would like to be able to see nature all around her. And then her third day, she said she would like to spend her time in her home city of New York, watching the busy city and the people going to work. That was her 3 wishes. But she concluded with these words: I who am blind can give one hint to those who see. Use your eyes as if tomorrow you were going to be stricken blind. How blessed we are to have our sense of sight. I think that's one of the worst ailments that you could have, is to be blind. Especially from birth, to not even know. Now, there's other people that's been blind since they were born, so they did see something. So they do, in their imagination and in their memory, they know what something looked like. To be blind in this day and age is bad enough, but at least there is some help. There's been all kind of advancements, the use of a cane, the guide dog, the ability to learn Braille, and technology is ever moving forward, where they're saying if to some people who are just legally blind, they might be able to restore their sight one day. It could happen. But in the case of Bartimaeus, he was really up against it. In the New Testament times, the Romans would toss blind children into the Tiber River in baskets. There were baskets sold for this purpose. If you had a child that was blind, they would put them in one of these baskets and throw them in the river. And if they survived, they became either beggars or they rode in the Roman gallery and on the ships. Well, that's a future, isn't it? That was the guys. The girls, if they survived the throwing into the river in the basket, they became prostitutes. Kind of gives you an idea of what people thought of blind people back in those days. It was pretty rough. And even the Jewish people of this day and age considered blindness as a curse of God. The blind were seen as a burden upon a home or a society because they couldn't support themselves. And this was Bartimaeus' lot. He was a survivor in one sense, but in another, a victim of his disability. He was reduced to begging on the charity of others. Not only do we see a man with a great disability, we see a man faced with a great opportunity. Many people at this point in time of our reading would have been making their way to celebrate the Passover at Jerusalem. That took a while to get there, so they had to plan ahead. And the road through Jericho was one of the many routes that people would take to get to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. Along Jesus' way through Jerusalem through Jericho up through Jerusalem, the crowd's been gathering. They were looking for him to see if he was going to do a miracle. Maybe they needed one done themselves. Word had gotten out that Jesus was coming, Jesus of Nazareth. And here's Bartimaeus sitting at the side of the road where beggars normally gathered. And he was seeking alms and charity from others. And he heard the excited talk as Jesus was coming in his direction. And he decided to take action. He decided to seize that moment. Now, this isn't the first time Jesus has been through here. In fact, if you recall, that it was in the same city that he called Zacchaeus down from the tree. But this was going to be his last appearance in Jericho. How important a detail is that? You see, the Lord will give us opportunities to be saved. And he's given Bartimaeus another chance to confront Jesus on his way to Jerusalem. He was on his way to the cross. He wouldn't be back through Jericho ever again. So he was wise to seize this moment. What a vivid picture of salvation this is. A blind man, the son of unclean, with no means of support, totally helpless, totally hopeless, But yet he has an encounter with the one man who can save him in that moment. Isn't that great? We saw this morning where the entire nation would see the salvation of the Lord. This afternoon, we're studying about where a blind man would see the salvation of the Lord in his own life. I say this, and I'm going to continue to say it until the Lord takes me home or removes me from preaching. If there's anybody here who's not saved, you can't afford to put that matter off. Bartimaeus didn't know this was going to be the last time. Jesus did, but he didn't. Jesus didn't make him make that decision. He made it on his own. If the Holy Spirit is talking to you, listen. Bartimaeus did exactly what every sinful person ought to do. He called on the name of the Lord. Verse 47, and when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy upon me. Called him by name. That was his Masonic title. Even Bartimaeus, who was blind, knew that. He had heard about Christ. Folks, it's so important for us to be a witness of Christ. We may be a witness of Christ and never see the fruit of our labor, but the seed needs to be planted so that somewhere down the line somebody will water it. God will give the increase. Never underestimate the power of your testimony in someone's life. Someone talked to Bartimaeus about Jesus. He heard the stories throughout this time. Even though he wasn't able to see, he could still hear. But it was going to be a matter of faith, like it is for all of us. For him to be healed, for him to be saved. But something interesting happened in verse 48. It says, and many charged him that he should hold his peace. Now, who in the world would do such a thing? Well, everywhere it's ever happened in our study so far, it's been the religious people. Every single time, whether it was children, sick people, lost people, they tried to keep them away from Jesus. We should never be in that crowd. We should want people to come to Jesus. We should never want to get in their way. But these people rebuked him, tried to quieten him down. Bartimaeus knew who Jesus was and what Jesus could do. And because of that, he didn't allow them, in verse 48, to make him hold his peace. It says on in 48, but he cried the more a great deal, thou son of David, have mercy on me. When I said that a while ago, that Masonic name, he is of the lineage of David. He's the Messiah. That tells you Bartimaeus had some knowledge about this man. He knew who he was talking to. And he cried even more. He didn't let the people rebuke him, quieten him down, or shame him. He continued to cry out. See, he had nothing to lose and he had everything to gain. Why would he keep his mouth shut? I tell you all the time about my salvation experience. In 2 years, I refused to obey the will of God and come to him under his terms. No one could have kept me from coming to him. Nobody. Nobody tried. And there was a couple on the row. And I know Steve was the first one because he was next to me, and I patted him on the back, and he moved out of the way. And I think there was another kid there, and he moved out of my way. And I didn't care who I inconvenienced. I was coming. No one was going to deter me. No one was going to deter Bartimaeus. He needed to see the master. He needed to talk with the master. He wasn't going to be distracted by the disapproval of others. He was determined to get to Jesus. So we see a man with a great disability and with a great opportunity, but I also want us to see that he was a man with great priority. Look in verse 49. And Jesus stood still, commanded him to be called. And they called the blind man, saying unto him, Be of good comfort, rise. He calleth thee. All of a sudden, the spotlight turns from this guy screaming from the crowd about how, Son of David, have mercy on me. And the spotlight shifts to Jesus because he stops. They were walking along and he stops and he says, Bring him to me. I want you to understand something. When we call upon the name of the Lord, he stops. And he shows attention to us. But the spotlight's on him. He's doing all the work. All we have to do is by faith come to him, and he takes care of everything else. This man became a great priority to Jesus. Now, think about this. He's headed for the Passover, and he knows after the Passover, he's going to establish the Lord's Supper with his church. And then after that, he's going to the garden to weep. And then from there, he's going to be betrayed, and he's going to be taken and beaten. And after that, he's going to be crucified, and he's going to die. And all of that was a priority to Christ. That's where he was headed. But while he was on this road from Jericho to Jerusalem, a man cried out, and Jesus stopped. That man was a priority to Jesus. And as a church, I want to tell you, every single solitary lost soul ought to be a priority to us. Oh, we have a purpose. But sometimes we can get so oriented to that we forget it's about the individual. And we need to be attentive to that. Now, I know I told you this morning, we can't save anybody. But we need to make for sure that we don't just bull rush over people. That we give them the chance to answer the call of Christ. Once they say, hey, I want to get saved, give them a chance. Give Jesus a chance to answer back to them, that we don't just bowl over people. It's a great priority for Christ. As much as he was a man on a mission to get to Jerusalem, it did not keep him from stopping along the way to talk to this blind man, Bartimaeus. Talking about the cross. You see, the cross is not an event that happens apart from us. It is an event that happened because of us. It was because of people like this blind man that he was going to the cross in the first place. He didn't forget the mission that he was there to do. Yes, it was to go to the cross, but it was because of people like blind Bartimaeus along the way. The Bible says that he came into this world to save sinners, and he saved us by going to the cross. But along the way, before he went to the cross, he was able to share the truth of the gospel with those that would hear it. He didn't force it, but this man is calling for Jesus, so he stood still. He made this lost man his priority. And what does he do after he stops? He gives an invitation to this one guy. Isn't that amazing? There was throngs of people. That's how personal the invitation of salvation is. It's not to the droves, it's to the individual. Each and every one of you, I pray, has heard and accepted that invitation. We're going through a little bit of invitation now with a wedding that's happening in January. I've been told that my role was to sit over and not worry about nothing. I hadn't cut the first invitation out. I hadn't licked the first stamp. I hadn't looked up the first address. I'm just sitting over there paying for everything. There's something new that happens where if you don't have everybody's addresses, you can send them a text message. Audrey's doing all this. And she sent a friend of hers, mother, an invitation. Well, her girlfriend, Audrey's girlfriend, didn't get one, and she got her feelings hurt. And so when she called Audrey, she's like, why haven't you sent me? And it wasn't an invitation. It was an invitation for you to send the information so you could get the invitation. Whatever. And this poor girl was upset. And Audrey said, you're in the wedding. You're invited. You're in the wedding. But she wanted to get the invitation. I am so glad that I got an invitation to accept Christ as my Savior, aren't you? And here's the great part is, he didn't leave anybody out. He's got everybody's address. That's another thing about Audrey. She's searching the earth for everybody's address. She don't leave anybody out. I'm telling her, I said, them people ain't coming to Missouri on January the 1st. I'm sending them an invitation anyways. I don't want to miss anybody. And she probably will. It's human, you know. Well, I don't know. Audrey's pretty planned girl. I don't know. But God don't miss anybody. Not everybody's going to accept it, but he sent it to everybody. So here's Brian Bartimaeus. He gets an invitation, a personal invitation from Jesus, his soon-to-be Savior. He has a great disability. He has a great opportunity. He is a great priority to Jesus. And now we're going to see a man with great conformity. It's in the last verses that we read. There are three things to notice about Bartimaeus in the scriptures. When Jesus said to him, come, right there. In verse 49, they say, he calleth thee. Look at verse 50. And he, casting away his garment, rose and came to Jesus. So he answered that call. Secondly, he cast away his garment. That was his outer garment. He didn't get naked, but he got rid of that outer garment. His blanket, if you will. It was his only source against the cold nights, source of refuge against the cold nights. But he got rid of that. He didn't want anything to weigh him down. And here he comes. This is different than a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the rich young ruler when Jesus told him to sell everything he owned, come to him. And he wouldn't let go of anything. That's the only thing this guy had. He was a poor beggar. That's the only outer garment he had, and he cast it away without even being asked. Because he knew, I have to come empty-handed. So many people get tripped up by material things. Money, houses, jobs, land, things. And it keeps them from accepting Christ because they cannot get rid of that. They want to cling to it. He didn't own much, but what he did own, he was willing to give up for Jesus. What about you? And then the third thing, he became a follower of Christ. Notice in verse 52, and Jesus said unto him, go thy way, thy faith hath made thee whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus in the way. As soon as he regained his sight, he stuck with Jesus. He walked with him. He followed him. He didn't go home. He didn't go see his friends. He didn't go check out nature. He didn't go to his favorite spot, and now he'd be able to see what it looked like. He was on Jesus' heels. He was a new follower. I remember when I first got saved, I think I read my Bible more then than I do now. I was so excited to follow Jesus, to be his follower. I wanted to know more about him. As much as I could find out about him, I wanted to know. Kind of reminds me of Ruth when Naomi offered her the chance to go back to Moab. What did she say? Whither thou goest, I will go. Where there, well, Where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God, my God. That's exactly what Bartimaeus is saying. I'm going wherever you're going. You've got the answers to life, and I'm following you. I have nowhere else to go. So many people want the deliverance, but they don't want to surrender to the discipleship of Christ. And it's so important that we do. They want to be saved by Jesus, but they don't want to serve him. Let me tell you something. A Christian is not someone who just prays a prayer. A Christian is not someone who just raises their hand in a meeting. A Christian is a follower of Jesus Christ. I don't profess to know a whole lot, but what I do know about this world, I learned from my dad. Mostly from my dad. Do you know why? I followed him everywhere he went. I even went to Mobile with him occasionally. I didn't get to go there every day. But when he was off and we worked, I followed him. I did what he did. On Saturday, when we had a project to do, I was with him. If he had to go pick up a cow in Woodville, I was riding with him. No matter where he went, no matter what house he was working on, no matter what, if it was painting or carpenter work, I was there with him. I was a follower of Dan Jennings. He was my dad. I didn't know anything when I first started following him. But I'll tell you this, every day at work I think about my dad, because I either think about what would Dad have me do here, what would we work out here, or Dad would be proud I figured that problem out. It's fixed into my head. I was a follower of his. He's not here anymore. But before he left, I was able to walk on my own and have a son who followed me. Now I have grandkids who follow me and they follow their dad. It's a family thing. It's the same way here. I didn't just get saved to miss hell and I'm done with God. I want to follow him where he goes. I want to learn more about him and learn more how things are to be done. And that's the way this used to be blind Bartimaeus. Now he's just Bartimaeus. Can't call him blind anymore. It is simple as this, folks. If we say that we are saved, then we have to ask ourselves the question, are we following him? You don't follow a man, and if you do, you're going to fail, because the man's going to fail. Please don't follow me. If you'd been in that meeting with me Monday, you'd have probably been embarrassed like Missy was, because of my tone. That was a sinful tone, undoubtedly, and it made that guy mad. Follow Christ. Now, as your pastor, I'm supposed to be the lead and follow him, and you follow suit, but we're all following Christ. Because there's going to be times I'm going to mess up. That's why you need a Bible too. Follow Jesus wherever he goes. It just amazes me. Bartimaeus could have done anything in the world that he wanted to at that point. He had got his sight back. And he's going to follow Jesus to Jerusalem, where he's going to be killed. He never missed a step. He was right there with him. Let's follow Jesus till we get to heaven. Let's stand. We're going to be dismissed in a word of prayer. I thank you for being here today and your